Hit the record. Okay. Now anything you say will be held against you because we're recording.
Oh, I better be careful.
Yeah. I don't know. Occasionally someone I get a message back like, could you edit that little bit I said? Which that's fine, of course. But yeah. You get too free a
I mean,
tongue
I,
sometime.
I mean, I have a podcast where I talk about religion and leftist politics. So I think if I'm gonna get blowback for anything, it's on my own podcast.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Well, I guess we'll do this one. So off to the races.
Sure.
Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. We explored the Twilight Zone. Now we are exploring the world of Rod Serling written movies. This is Matt here, coming back. It's John Arminio from Popcorn Eschaton Podcast. How is
Hey
it
there.
going? How is
I'm
it?
going good. Thanks for having me back. I'm
Yeah,
excited to
yeah.
talk about a sad boxing movie.
A sad boxing movie. I guess most boxing movies have kind of like an inherent sadness. I mean, Rocky, it's like, oh, well, Rocky loses it, doesn't he? But you
Yeah.
know, I mean, okay, that's a sad boxing movie. What else? Raging Bull, geez, that's sad.
Yeah.
Give me a happy boxing movie.
Uh, Breed, maybe?
Okay, yeah, yeah, it's a little, yeah, sure. But it is a sport that seems to have a certain kind of melancholy about it. Maybe because you're getting repeatedly punched in the face until you lose your mind.
Yeah, to me watching this, it's so interesting how in the last 10 to 15 years there's been so much talk about like CTE and damage that the athletes suffer in sports, but it's clear that we've known about it for forever and we've just kind of been okay with it as a society that these who sign up for the sport when they're boys are sacrificing their bodies for our entertainment, and we're a-okay with it.
Yeah, I'm looking for the article here. We just had in Japan last week where there we go. August 13th article, Japan boxing to adopt stricter rules after deaths of two fighters. Apparently it was like
Well,
in the same day. The article weird. The article has expired and is no longer available, but the headline's still there. That's weird. I did read it like a couple weeks ago, but
mhm.
yeah, it's an issue in Japan right now because of that. Serling, this that did seem to be kind of like one of his things, like boxing. We got a few episodes of that in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
Steel.
yeah, because he was a boxer in World War II, right?
You know what? I'm not. I think that sounds right, but
Yeah, I
there
think he got
seemed
like
to.
his nose broken or something.
Yeah. Yes, yes. But there is also like a spate of boxing fatalities in the early '60s, which also seem to
Okay.
influence. Maybe not this because this is originally the script is what 56. So I think
Yeah.
it was in the context of the Twilight Zone when we were looking at Steel, and I think there was one other real big boxing one back in the Twilight Zone that seemed to be
Mhm.
reflective of what was happening in the 60s. So I guess Requiem for a Heavyweight would be a little more of like his, wartime experience coming through in this one.
Yeah. And I think Sterling was a little guy, and there's just not many sports that small men can compete in other than like amateur wrestling or boxing, unless you want to be a jockey.
Mhm.
So I think it when your options are that limited, maybe you kind of have to like choose to not be in athletics at all, or put on those gloves and get cauliflower ear.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a shot of that in here, didn't they?
Yeah.
No, for me, I guess my never taking with sports very much is my insane lack of depth perception. So, any ball, I'm like,
Yeah.
I got it, and then it flies like, 10 feet over my head or
Yeah.
something. Even now I'm driving, sometimes my wife's like, why didn't you turn? You had a gap. I'm like, I just can't tell. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can't.
just so uncoordinated. Like it's so embarrassing.
If it's music, I'm good, but if it's sports, yeah,
Yeah.
it's that whole depth perception thing that gets me.
Yeah.
So, um, I guess I'll do a little bit of the trivia on this before we dive
Sure.
in deeper. But the TV show is 56. I'm focusing on the film for the trivia here. So we'll just mention Jack Palance is in the wins. Daddy Edwin and Keenan Wynn are the stars of the TV show. So it is worth having a look at, but the quality, as we were mentioning before the record, is not as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
this one is the film version. The film was released on October 16th, 1962. Ralph Nelson directed. He had already helmed the TV version of the story, as well as the Twilight Zone episode A World of His Own. He'd go on to make Academy Award nominated films like Lilies of the Field, Father Goose, and Charlie. Rod Serling gets the sole writing credit on this one. We know that guy, especially if you're listening to that podcast, this podcast. Anthony Quinn was Luis Mountain Rivera, a superlative actor of his time. Quinn won Oscars for Viva Zapata and Lust for Life and was nominated for Wild as the Wind and Zorba the Greek. Other credits include Lawrence of Arabia, Across 110th Street, and Jungle Fever. He is absolutely 47 years old in this film and not 37, in case anyone's wondering. Mace Rennick was played by Jackie Gleason. He'd made a splash a year prior in The Hustler, and almost a decade prior as the star of TV's The Honeymooners. An entertainment polyglot, he also recorded a stack of romantic mood music right around this time, and it hit the charts. Give him another decade and a half, and he'll be chasing Smokey and the Bandit. Mickey Rooney was Army. We've seen him in Twilight Zone's The Last Night of a Jockey. As a young buck, he was one of Hollywood's biggest draws, playing Andy Hardy in 17 films and regularly co-starring with Judy Garland. Julie Harris was Grace Miller. With 5 Tonys, 3 Emmys, and a Grammy, she was only one letter away from EGOT status. But she was at least nominated for The Member of a Wedding and can be found in East of Eden, I Am a Camera, and Reflections and a Golden Eye, which is not a James Bond film. Mountain Riviera is pummeled by a 20-year-old Cassius Clay. Clay would change his name to Muhammad Ali 2 years later and become the greatest, which arguably translates to him being the most famous athlete of all time. His smack talk is still considered a basic feature of primordial hip hop. I'd kind of forgotten about that when I was looking at the wiki. I was like, oh yeah, that he kind of did do a
Yeah.
bit of that. So
Yeah, it was very cool to see Cassius Clay in there, and it's great to like part of the plot of the movie is that oh, Mountain Rivera's only gonna last like 2 rounds against Cassius Clay. Like, who are we kidding?
that's some Rocky stuff there, right? You know.
Yeah, yeah,
And it is an interesting time because I mean would you I would say he's probably the most famous athlete of all time.
yeah.
Any other
Probably yeah.
contenders?
If at least like of the 20th century, probably.
Yeah, but not in this in 1962, not quite,
Yeah,
you know.
not
So it's
yet.
a
No, no.
and the weird thing about
Because
him
he,
is he had to stop boxing to become super famous.
yeah, yeah. That's one of those like kind of mind-boggling things that all of his accomplishments come like before and after he went to jail for refusing the draft. Like it's the same thing with like Ted Williams, going to World War II and Korea, interrupting his baseball career in his prime.
Well,
It's
that
like,
gave, I
geez.
mean, that's the juice, I guess, to make him an absolute celebrity, though. Because, like you and I were talking, you don't have coordination, I don't have depth perception. So we're not sports guys. But, in the late 60s, Muhammad Ali also becomes a bit of a counterculture symbol
Yeah,
for
an
refusing the
icon.
draft. So
Yeah,
now I don't care about boxing, I don't care about sports, but, this guy's cool as hell and he's making a stand. That's
yeah.
appealing, even if you're not
And
into
and it's interesting,
sports.
like the two guys that raised their fists at the '68 Olympics, they had a lot of trouble getting jobs, period, when they came back to the States. Like they were kind of blackballed by society, but Muhammad Ali was able to, maintain his iconic status throughout his entire life. I think that speaks to his magnetism and his ability. He was just so irrefutable a figure.
Yeah, and of course I'm from Atlanta, so '96 Olympics. He's doing the
Yeah,
final torch. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
I was not at the opening ceremonies. The tickets for that were insane, but I was at the place where that bomb blew up in Centennial Park about 30 minutes
Oh,
before it did blow up.
wow, wow.
We were watching a concert. It was like Brian Setzer or Santana or something. We went and got on the train, and once we got off the train, I was like, oh, Park blew up. Well, and
Jesus.
about like the pylon where that bomb was about
Yeah,
20
yeah,
feet
yeah,
from us. I'm like,
yeah.
that's amazing. So yeah. Um, but something we've been doing these Serling written movies. It's been like the law of diminishing returns so far. Like Patterns was pretty good. The Rack, almost as good. And then Saddle Winds, it's like it's a Western. Instant and Alley, it's like it's a low budget pot boiler. So it is nice to put this one on and be like, oh, we've got a real director, we've got real actors, it looks good, it's shot well.
Yeah.
I get a real movie finally, which is nice. I was worried that I was going to get in this weird like you know, spiral of oh my God, what have I got myself into? But I'll go straight up and say this is a pretty good movie.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's some real like aces performances from Anthony Quinn and the supporting cast. I love Julie Harris. She's so good in The Haunting, and she's great here as just, this like employment office lady who is empathetic but also doesn't take any BS and is able to see the kindness in Mountain Rivera.
But the red flags just keep coming up.
Yeah, yeah. And like Jackie Gleason as Mace Rennick, like this guy who sold out his trainer, the boxer that he's supposed to be managing, but also he did dedicate 17 years of his life to training this guy. But also, Mountain Rivera dedicated 17 years of his life to boxing for Mace. So it's, you know, it, they're both like wrapped up so much in each other's lives so that when either one of them fails, their failure like drags down the other one in a pretty tragic way.
Yeah, and I guess maybe the big flaw of a sport like this is you go 17 years, and let's say I'm hey, let's say I'm Ozzy Osbourne. I can go do a concert in a throne. It's awesome. And then I expire 2 weeks later. I can set up
Yeah,
my ending a little bit. Whereas if the doc just comes in and says, wow, that's one injury too many, you weren't expecting that. Just like you are finished right now. There is no farewell tour. Like that,
yeah,
that lack of being able to have a Twilight era, no pun intended for the show, of course. But
yeah,
yeah, that's a killer, right? It's just one day you're gone. That's
yeah,
very different than many other let's call it we'll call a boxer an artist in this case, but other artists, they usually get to have a wind down period. It's like, wow, I can see that I'm physically or mentally like going downhill a little bit, but I can coast out, where this guy is like tomorrow you're in the employment agency.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of athletes, like we've seen tragic career injuries happen to athletes, very publicly, like Joe Theismann breaking his leg on national TV, maybe like 30 years ago now or 40. And and you see like the decline of somebody like Mike Tyson, like just mentally lose it, biting Evander Holyfield's ears, or that kind of thing. But yeah, then what do you do with the next 40 years of your life
But that's the
when all
top
you know
tier,
is
right? What does
boxing?
Tyson
Yeah,
do? He shows up in like quirky film cameos now, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
basically a shtick now. Show up for 3 minutes in a film. He's usually not acting well or anything. People are just like, ha ha,
yeah,
it's Mike Tyson, great. They're happy to
yeah.
see him for a few minutes. He's gone. They pay him a bit. That's probably, maybe he's got a few investments on the side. This is several tiers down though. He was number five, what, 15 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, and just to like the average career for a football player is 3 years because like they're so prone to injury and being cut, for the next draftee, and so they kind of have the same trajectory. Like, what do you do when you're retired at 25? And this is the same thing with these boxers. Like, yeah, if you're not in the pipeline to possibly win a championship belt, you're going nowhere.
Of course, in Japan, we have sumo, where not only are
Yeah,
you submitting yourself to this kind of, brutal force. I guess they don't get cuts as much because they're not punching each other. They do slap. They get in little slap fights sometimes, though.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Sometimes
it's
there's
for sumo, it's less head injuries, more like knee problems.
Oh yeah, you'll see these guys just show up with like all their joints like wrapped in tape and stuff. I
Yeah.
think I don't know what the average is. I would guess somewhere between 5 to 10 years for sumo wrestlers. But the thing is, these guys tend to die really young because they spent all that time making their bodies massive to do sumo. And I mean, a sumo wrestler is in shape, but once you are no
Hmm.
longer in the stable doing that. You go when you're doing sumo, that is your life. You know, you like it's like living
Yeah,
in a cult basically. So once you're out, now you can get married, now you can start a business, but your health is never quite going to be on an even keel.
yeah, yeah. What do you do with your body when its primary function is now something else? Like that is something that athletes have trouble with. Like if you're trained to be a professional athlete or an Olympian or whatever, like every action you take is geared towards improving your performance. So the amount you sleep, the your training schedule, what and when you eat. And now when that's gone, like what do you do with yourself? And I think we see Mountain Rivera have to face that in this movie.
I tend to sick this on the guests if you think you can, but can you give us basically the TV guide plot for this movie? You know, the two sentence
Sure.
summary.
Yeah. Mountain Rivera is a boxing veteran who has spent many years in the middle tier of the sport and has a career-ending injury fighting young up-and-comer Cassius Clay and has to face the grim reality of life without boxing as he struggles to get out of the grip of both the underworld, his former manager, and possibly realize the potential within himself if he can.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler, the ending is kind of depressing.
Yeah. The TV version is a little less depressing.
Yeah, that's what I got. And we should mention, I guess that's the Jack Palance performance, which is very good too.
Yeah, yes.
Is he an Anthony Quinn? Not quite. He's got that scene in Shane, you know, pick up the gun, right? But
Yeah. But I
I like Jack
think
Palance. But yeah, Anthony Quinn is maybe just a he's got a little more of that like command of stage feel to him, you know?
yeah. And Anthony Quinn, I think his physicality and his size, especially like the size of his hands, he fits this role better. But I think because Jack Palance is younger, he's like the right age for this character. So when Jack Palance is told you're too old or your body is too broken to keep fighting, it's I think it's more inherently tragic because we see the years that he has ahead of him. Whereas Anthony Quinn, it's clear that he's already over the hill to be a boxer, and so it comes as no surprise that he has this eye injury that keeps him out of the ring.
Yeah, because they do the very Twilight Zone thing of he is 37 years old. And you're like, no, he's not. And then you look at the weekend, it's like Anthony Quinn was 47. He was my age when he
Yeah,
did this. So, you know,
yeah,
I'm not going to be boxing. Jeez. Uh,
yeah,
hell, even for musicians, you know, I've been playing guitar and cello for 30 years. My thumbs are starting to get clicky. I saw a recent interview with Keith Richards where he was finally like, yeah, I have to kind of change how I play the guitar now because, you know, the arthritis is kicking in at age 80,
yeah.
whatever he's at.
Yeah. Now I have to say when I saw Judas Priest a couple years ago, they're still killing it. Like it's ridiculous.
No, you still kill
Um,
it. If you saw clips, I
yeah,
mentioned Ozzy Osbourne. If you saw clips of that Black Sabbath show a few weeks
yeah,
before he died, it's not bad. I mean, he's obviously not
yeah,
running around the stage or anything, but
yeah.
you
Now,
know.
now I think that was a special occasion because like Bill Ward and Ozzy, they can't do that regularly.
Oh no,
But
that
but
all the Sabbath stuff had been missing him for like what,
yeah,
30 years. So it's kind of a big
yeah.
deal that they actually
But
did
Rob
get.
Halford's still doing it every night. He's a maniac. He's 74.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, McCartney still puts on marathon
Yeah,
concerts. Mentioned the Stones. Like that was my point with Keith Richards. They're still doing these massive concerts.
yeah.
He's just like, I gotta play a little different, and we've got five
Bruce
guitar players
Springsteen
under
putting
the.
on 3 hour concerts at 75.
Yeah, so
Maniac.
art does, I mean, you could do your best, you know, Picasso did some of his best work as an old codger, you know, so art does
Yeah.
allow,
Well, he had
there's
all those
still
16-year-old girlfriends to keep him
keep them
young.
young. But yeah, the physical element, I guess you can modify it more with art, you know, a limitation can make something a new kind of art.
Yep.
Django Reinhardt had his hand completely screwed up in a fire or something, and
Hmm.
you know, he basically could only use two fretting fingers when he played. He
Yeah.
couldn't use his other two fingers, and you would
Yeah. Yeah.
never
Tony Iommi
know.
had the tips of his fingers shorn off in an industrial accident.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, I love him, but if you compare that in Django, what you're hearing Django doing, you can't do that with two fingers. You know, Black
Yeah,
Sabbath, like,
yeah,
okay, you can
yeah,
play those power chords, but yeah.
yeah.
Um, and as a guitarist, I actually more recently, my hand's not broke enough not to play or anything. I just have cracky thumbs. But I have been finding myself just finding ways to simplify things. I'm like, why play
Hmm.
these big, you know, hand crushing chords when I can just, use two fingers like Django did. So, but sports, you always have to be at like 100% top
Yeah,
of your A game if you're going to
yeah,
succeed. So anything like that, you're screwed. Django Reinhardt's out, if playing jazz guitar is a sport.
yeah, yeah. And when you're like one of the greats, like if you watch a young Michael Jordan and an old Michael Jordan, or a young LeBron James and old LeBron James, they're still like, one of the 10 best players in the game in both of those eras, but their game has changed significantly. But Mountain Rivera is not in that tier of athlete, and so he just can't. He doesn't have the pure skill to push him through that loss in athleticism.
No, we see his apartment. It sucks. So,
Yeah,
he's not raking in the bucks or anything.
no,
I mean, this has just been like that relatively stable job that you can maintain that long. Um,
yeah,
I mean, it does get me thinking about all of us. It's like, I've been teaching English for 20 years. I mean, I learned Japanese using my phone more than a teacher. So I'm like, hey, when people figure out to do other English, our teacher's going to be in short supply. I noticed the company I used to work for, they closed a few schools recently.
hmm, yeah. World's changing for the worse. Um, and yeah, and Mountain's case because he's so focused on boxing, he just has no other skills. He doesn't even have any social skills. He barely knows how to talk to people other
We
than tell
can
boxing
barely talk because
stories.
he's been hit in the head too
Yeah,
many times.
yeah,
I mean, what does he say? I talk funny because I've been hit in the head so many times. He like very literally says that.
yeah.
Like this is why I talk funny. Um, I guess we should consider. Is Julie the character or the actress? Julie Harris. Am I mixing her names? Okay.
Yeah, Julie Harris. Grace Miller is the
Grace.
the
Okay.
character.
You can see where Julie Harris and Grace Miller would get a little
Yeah,
mixed up in your mind, but she was kind of a fascinating character for 1962. Um,
yeah,
because it's not like a Twilight Zone episode like The Hitchhiker or The After Hours where they are just focusing on the actress, right? This one could have been like a token, female role, and I do think it has more depth than you usually get from a movie in the 50s or a pre-New Hollywood movie, let's say.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is actually w- like one of the most fascinating eras in Hollywood. Like for me, the late 50s, early to mid 60s, because like the studio system is dying, the Hays Code is gone. You have the influence from like French and Italian New Wave and Japanese film coming into Hollywood. So you get like remakes of Japanese movies like Magnificent Seven or whatever. And you get like these weird little like almost indie movies like this. And like in 62 you had Lolita and The Music Man come out in the same year. You had the like Frank Perry movies like David and Lisa and Ladybug, and the Swimmer, which are just very strange. And so it's almost like there is this bubble happening where Hollywood is trying to decide which direction it's gonna go, and then finally, like in the late 60s, when you start hitting like the Easy Riders and whatever, and you have the birth of New Hollywood. But here it's sort of like Hollywood doesn't know where it's going, and I find that very interesting.
And that's actually what this little series between Twilight Zones seems to be kind of like unintentionally hitting on because
Yeah.
Patterns in Iraq were, like not high budget, but like normal tier studio movies. The TV show
Hmm.
is good, let's blow it in the theater. Studios, it's like it's running it like Hail Caesar well at this point, right? Meaning not
Yeah.
perfectly, but it's still there. Saddle to Wind was like this like let's try and make a big old glorious Western, which was, the
Yeah.
knee-jerk thing they'd sometimes have. And that was not a successful movie.
Hmm.
Instant and Alley is kind of the flip side of this coin, where Requiem for a Heavyweight has some known stars, some real talent behind the camera, and it's like the dying embers of a studio pot boiler. Instant Alley is kind of the same thing, but like I think that was an independent studio. It's lower budget. It's nobody in it's particularly recognizable. Um,
Hmm.
and it gets KO'd by this movie pretty easily. So that one
Yeah.
was interesting as well because Instant Alley is a cop shoots and kills a child, right? So, geez, that's still relevant.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
movie itself was weirdly archaic. So,
Yeah.
um,
Interesting. Interesting.
and then after this, we're moving on. I don't know what to expect from the Yellow Canary, but 7 Days in May, that's like a real movie, right? So,
Yeah, that's a great movie. Yeah.
yeah, I mean
Yeah, and
that's
you have like other movies like John Frankenheimer would touch on very Twilight Zone topics like in Manchurian Candidate and Seconds.
oh, I still maintain
Um
Seconds is the best Twilight Zone movie.
yeah, it's so good. Yeah, so the fact that we're getting those kind of movies in theaters released by major studios is really fascinating to me.
So, but this does seem to be where Serling's voice is a little stronger, because
Yeah.
Patterns the Racket's still there, because they're like the whole point was his teleplay. Instant Alley and Shadow of Wind was like they're using him, but I think other people were rewriting the scripts. You know, he
Hmm.
probably wasn't involved in the production much, because Instant Alley is like what 7 years after it was on television or something. So, you know, I
Hmm.
don't know who knows if they even gave him a phone call about it, but.
Yeah.
This one does seem to have a little more Serling DNA in it. I don't know how, again, this is 7 years later. I don't know how much, and he was doing the Twilight Zone, so who knows how much he was actually involved.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the beats are pretty similar to the TV version. And that has to be pure Serling. So it's a pretty loyal adaptation of his screenplay, I would have to think.
yeah, I'm just curious if he was like, on set or anything like that.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah,
they
yeah.
say anything on.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
they
not
give you on
sure.
the wiki is a plot and a quick reception and the
Hmm.
cast.
Yeah, but
Um,
same director as the TV version.
That's correct, yes.
So,
But yeah, and he wouldn't really catch fire as far as his career till after this. So this
hmm.
would have been like his, early calling card. Um,
Yeah,
the one that gets people's attention before your guarantor, right?
yeah, before Lilies of the Field.
Um, we should talk about, I guess, the other actors have been here because Jackie Gleason, Mickey Rooney. I think I guess Jackie Gleason's actually in his prime. Mickey Rooney is notoriously past his prime for most of his career, but I feel like we're
Hmm.
right smack. I mean, Honeymooners is over, but he's on top of the charts with records right now, with Gleason.
Yeah, yeah, because he was him in the Hustler the previous year is
Right.
another outstanding performance.
So it's interesting because I feel like these films haven't quite been frontier Hollywood films, but putting Gleason here's pretty. That's putting the chips in. I'm sure they had to pay him a few
Yeah,
dollars to be in it. It makes it a bigger production when you get these guys on, and even Rooney. I mean,
yeah,
Rooney, he's still a name. It's like now if Zac Efron's in your movie, like I guess his prime was when he was a kid, but he can actually put some better performances now than he did then, and
yeah.
but he's not.
He's really great. He's the empathetic heart of the movie in some ways.
Which is so interesting because the most recent that I've seen Rooney in Last Night with Jock in the Twilight Zone, where he, goes like three shades of crazy.
Hmm. And he
So,
was notoriously not a nice guy in real life.
I were you on for that one where we were talking about the commentary track for Last Night with Jockey, which is
N
hysterical.
no,
Okay,
no, okay.
any listeners again look up they interviewed him like probably like 2 years before he died, and he's like gets really antagonistic towards the interviewer, and it's kind of funny. He says
Yeah,
some insane stuff. Now at that point you might be giggling at a guy who is in late stage dementia, but he is like 90 at this point when you're listening to his commentary. So
yeah.
he's like, "What were you
But
thinking?"
he antagonized enough people while he was young. So
Yes, yes, yes. So it is kind of funny. I guess that's the thing though, classic 30s, early 40s Rooney is like, gee golly, what a nice guy sort of character, right? So
yeah,
it's the template for ruining the child star, I guess. And he's
yeah,
only he's only like 40 in this movie and he looks 60, he was living the
yeah.
wild
He
Hollywood
he
life.
aged pretty fast for child star.
Yeah.
Do
Oh
you
yeah.
think this character was an inspiration for Mick in Rocky? Mm,
That occurred to me. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a little while since I watched Rocky, to be perfectly honest. I probably seen Creed much more recently, but There's some flow in there, and just the way that I mean, Sylvester Stallone actually isn't that tall, is he? But just the way Anthony Quinn is like, moving around as a big galoot that can barely function. That's
Yeah.
kind of what Stallone's doing in Rocky.
Yeah. And just like Mickey Rooney being named Mickey,
The
you
Mixter,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And being like a little guy who used to be a boxer and is
And,
now a trainer.
and maybe it's because of Jackie Gleason was. It was funny when I was typing the notes, I first was accidentally typing Jackie Cooper for another, child star that had
Yeah.
a weird route. So I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, all
yeah,
these names are kind of close to each other. What do you know? Um, he was very good in this. I mean, and Gleason. Gleason, I was kind of thinking, like, this is the kind of thing that, John Goodman would maybe reference for his roles in Coen
yeah,
Brother movies and stuff. Like he get,
absolutely.
especially like Barton Fink, before the hallway catches on fire. It's kind of got this
Hmm.
vibe where he's like just he's kind of nice and kind of menacing at the same time. He's wearing his hat, all that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and there's a scene where he corners Grace in the stairway where I guess they kind of corner each other, but he's very menacing in that scene. Like he kind of crowds her, and Jackie Gleason is a big dude and is very threatening towards her physically until she like slaps him.
I guess that's what
And
I'm thinking. The Goodman performances again. Oh, brother
yeah,
Art, he's charming
yeah,
in quotations, and then he
yeah, sure.
beats the crap out of Clooney's character, right? So and I Gleason here just getting that like I see where this guy's very charming, but at the same time he's
Hmm.
very scary, and I that's a
Yeah,
pretty cool. It's not. I don't think that's an easy performance to do. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
like
absolutely.
like with Mick with the Mixter, like that's probably like a little bit. It just seemed like a decent person, which
Hmm.
again, knowing Hollywood history, maybe that was a stretch, but he did the acting well in this. So
Yeah,
um,
another like I was fascinated by the Moss Spivey character, or no, Ma Greeny, played by Madame Spivey or Spivey.
oh yeah,
Just
I can.
a very like she just coded like an older, heavy set woman coded as androgynous as a mob boss. It was just so interesting. Like yeah, I can't recall any other character like that in movies.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I got Peter Lorre vibes a little bit,
Yeah.
but then the casting there is kind of fascinating. So yeah, and then she comes back near the end. You're like, wait, whoa, yeah, what, huh? So who knows? Maybe that factors a bit into our tripometer in the end.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not at a zero this week. Let's see. Yeah, at one point the trivia was just getting insane, so I quit writing.
Mm.
Stan Adams is Pirelli. There was the one place where I was like, is this a corner cut? When Mountain first goes to the employment agency, there's a guy in him right before, and I'm like, this feels like it was supposed to be like a Dick York cameo or something, And then they just had to get some other guy.
Oh, interesting. That had not occurred to me.
Okay, maybe it's because I've watched Twilight episodes recently. I had Dick York,
Mm.
so that might be why it was coming through.
Yeah.
Let me check if I have anything big in my. Yeah, I did just keep writing for Anthony Quinn. Like early on, it's like, gee, he looks kind of like an audio animatronic. Later, he looks like a wax figure. I guess a lot of that was them caking some actual makeup on him, so he did look like a
Yeah.
wax figure. But it was interesting that they were trying to make him not. He didn't quite look human, which
Hmm.
is maybe in the benefit of the film because it's like he's a bit robotic or something, right? And looks
Yeah,
like.
he yeah. And you wonder like how kids would have reacted to him because Grace suggests at the employment agency that he would be a good coach at a boys' camp. And, with his athletic experience, you could see that, but does he have the communication skills to work with kids? But, how would kids react to him? Would they, you could see a situation where kids would overlook his looks and just be fascinated by him and listen to what he says, but you could also see kids being cruel to him.
Yeah, I was thinking like Richard Kiel as Jaws and James Bond.
Yeah.
The Spy Who Loves Me. He's an actual henchman villain, but then kids really liked him. It's this big, goofy
Yeah,
looking guy with metal teeth. So in Moonraker, like, oh, we have to make him kind of like likable now, don't we?
yeah. Yeah, so you can never really anticipate that the way kids respond. I mean, yeah, how long did it take for Godzilla to become a good guy in
Yeah.
movies? Because people just wanted to root for him.
And for random reasons, I was reading Michael Eisner's camp book, which he's currently actually touring it, but it came up with something else. But it is interesting. I don't know, did you ever go to summer camp much as a kid?
A little bit.
Okay, I did too. I went to some Boy Scout camps and another one in Georgia, but it was interesting, him delineating like how it works between the adults and the kids and the people in between, right? So
Hmm.
having read a fair amount of that book, I was like, actually, she's not wrong. He probably could really be a good fit at a summer camp because there
Yeah,
it's like kids are really at a summer camp, they're away from their home and they're really interested in this enigmatic, unique person. They become a
yeah.
legend at a summer camp, right?
Oh, for sure.
Maybe,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe
definitely.
during the year they're just like teaching geography, but then they become this legend every summer, right? And
Yeah,
now they're 80 something, they can't see anymore, and the kid's like, oh, there he is, he's still around, that sort of thing.
yeah, 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 and it speaks to the duplicitous nature of Maish that on the night that Mountain is gonna go for his interview, Maish gets him drunk, so he can't get the job. That's the real sort of heel turn for
He's a
Maish.
stumble bum, as they say.
Yeah.
That's a word in my working vocabulary, by the way. I was like, I think this is a weird anachronistic, but I actually do use that word, like not
Nice.
unregularly. So, yeah.
I love anachronisms. Yeah, nice one.
Well, as you know, I like to use groovy a lot as well, because why
Yeah.
not? But yeah, another one, stumble bum. I will use
Mhm.
that when people are drinking, and uh, we will get into what I guess Mountain deserves or not. That is the most one where he could is that just saying no to a drink from Mace doesn't seem like a world-ending thing, you know?
Yeah, he could have just not gotten drunk.
I get
Yeah,
the
but
thing where he does feel responsible for Mage because Mage has been his manager for 17 years, but that's a thing that where he didn't owe him that, you know?
yeah. Yeah, and I mean in like if you were put in the situation where if you don't take this professional wrestling job, your friend of 17 years is going to get murdered by the mob. Like that's a terrible choice, right? And I guess like I guess I would just go into the ring, right?
That's what
Like
he
you don't want
does.
to, yeah, you don't want to let your. I mean, Mountain would not be the only boxer who would turn professional wrestler, especially of this era, because um, especially especially non-white boxers, that there wasn't many career opportunities for them certainly, and a lot of them could make more money professional wrestling than they did boxing. And so while the professional wrestling industry is certainly exploitative, um, it's not like for those guys who really made the switch, it wasn't this like undignified, humiliating
No,
path.
it's still
But
athletic. I mean, they are
yeah,
making him put on this, like wig and go
yeah,
around
yeah. So
woo-wooing, and
that gimmick
that's
is
horrible.
humiliating. Yeah, yeah,
If they like, hey, if they had given him a better gimmick, would that make the end of the movie happier?
yeah. Like if he had just been the face instead of the heel, yeah.
Yeah, yes, yes.
But
Like
it is interesting that like so Anthony Quinn is a Mexican American actor, right? And he's playing a Latino boxer, but he spent the most of his career being like ethnically ambiguous, where he would play Greeks or Native Americans. And here he is, humiliate himself as this Mexican American guy playing a Native American character to wrestle. And I thought that was kind of an interesting meta moment.
no, that's the weird studio system thing. I mean, in the Twilight Zone, anyone that's quote unquote ethnic is probably Eastern European, you know?
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Let's I guess I am trying to still put my questions on these and if they go sideways or something, that's fine. Does this have anything that resembles the Twilight Zone to you? Did
Um,
anyone go through a Twilight Zone in this episode? Movie.
I mean, I think um, the nightmare of having to fight Cassius Clay and then waking up and your career is over. That's sort of like entering the Twilight Zone. Your entire world is flipped upside down. You have no ground to stand on anymore. So that's pretty Twilight Zoney.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is the twilight of his career, or the sudden
Yeah,
end, the sudden darkness of his career. And I do like how you throw in, yeah, you fight Cassius Clay, you wake up, your career's over. I'm like that. That's 2025, retrospective, I guess, as opposed to someone watching this in 1962. But now you're like the greatest
yeah,
of all time, just kicked your butt, and now you're retired.
yeah.
So that
You're
almost
you're
adds a supernatural element by
yeah.
accident.
You're one little step on the way for Cassius Clay to become Muhammad Ali.
Um, but yeah, it's a character study. It's Mountain, and
Yeah.
I'm going to rephrase the second question slightly and just say, what does Mountain deserve? Um, I'm also putting on, it's like, well, the thing with the professional wrestling is it's probably just as physically damaging. It just doesn't have a doctor checking you out after the bouts because it's, more like acting,
Yeah.
right? That's the whole thing with Mickey Rourke and the wrestler, right? Like
Yeah.
his body is completely shredded and
Yeah.
it's still a very demanding thing to do. So it
Yeah.
may not be
I
actually
th
competitive, but it's very physically demanding.
I think a lot of the problem with professional wrestling is just the schedule. Like a lot of those guys do like 300 dates a year, which is punish. So while one bout is certainly not as damaging as one boxing bout, the schedule, the pressure, and the drugs that a lot of them take to maintain that schedule, that damage builds and builds and builds. And so that's why those guys die at like 57 of a heart attack
And
constantly.
that's probably where Mountain's heading, right? If he went to the
Yeah.
summer camp, he might be age 85 is a weird old fascination for 10-year-olds, which I don't know. Is that a great,
Yeah.
is that a good fate? Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like it could be rewarding, especially if he has the companionship of Grace, who seems to take a liking to him. He
Yeah.
certainly has a path to a better life if he chooses to take it. But I think he's been manipulated and told what to do his whole life. He doesn't know how to make his own decisions anymore.
Yeah. Because I don't feel like he's really going bros over hose. He's just going
Yeah,
the way
certainly
the,
not.
the
Yeah,
flow is going?
yeah, yeah. And the nature of boxing, especially at this time, was just so controlled by the underworld that, like, you know, he he uh, he certainly felt like he had no control over his own destiny.
I have a feeling you're going to find some interesting people even now back in the behind the scenes of pro
Yeah,
boxing.
God, it's ugh, especially with how gambling is so legal now. It's pretty terrible in sports at the moment, I think.
Would you be willing to rate this episode on the tripometer? You were bringing up what was Ma Spivey, Madam
Yeah,
Spivey. That certainly throws that's an interesting twist. I think that
yeah.
made me start thinking about the tripometer anymore a little more. But how about you? Do you want to give it anything on the tripometer?
Um, yeah, I'll give it a 1 on the tripometer. So a little trippy, you get a little taste of it, but it's still pretty bleak and realistic, I think.
Yeah, it is mostly bleak and realistic, but that character and the fact that Anthony Quinn just looks like somewhere between a wax figure robotic and a very good actor through the entire thing.
Yeah,
That's it's a weird thing. I mean, I guess he just always has a weird presence on screen, just mostly because size, but
yeah.
um
Yeah, this weird combination of virile masculinity and vulnerability.
and having the mentality of like a what is his emotional age, I guess, in this? What would you say? Because I'm
Um,
feeling he might have never grown up that much just because he went to professional boxing. And then his brain has, now like been turned into mush a bit as well. So
yeah.
like he felt
He's
like a 7-year-old or something through most of it?
Yeah, and there's this moment where like for half a second he like kind of pulls Grace into bed with him until he realizes what he's doing. So like it's possible he's a virgin, like he's so emotionally stunted. Like his whole world has been boxing. So I don't know if there's like a specific age to pinpoint where his mental development is at. I think he had the potential. Like we just don't know what his potential was,
And
just
it
because
is
he just stopped at like 17.
and it is interesting that several years later, Ralph Nelson would make Charlie, which very much gets into that sort of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
The adult child, of course, and there it's the Algernon story, so it's a
Hmm.
little different. Mountain never suddenly becomes like extremely lucid or anything.
Yeah.
I believe Charlie was a remake of Lawnmower Man, was it?
A lot more man was a remake of Charlie.
I was trying to make a
Yeah,
terrible joke
yeah.
there.
Okay.
Didn't land. Sometimes that
Okay.
happens.
Sorry, sorry.
Any final points you want to throw out on Requiem for a heavyweight?
Um, no, I think I said all I needed to say
Yeah, this
about
this
this.
is the best one we've done on this run. Patterns probably for me would come in second, but Patterns has a thing where it doesn't really kick in for a while. It takes
Hmm.
half the movie for it to really start firing on all cylinders. Whereas this one seems to be it's well paced. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't start slow, have a soggy middle, have a like it's never a like firecracker action movie or anything like that, but it's well paced. At any point, it
yeah.
seems to maintain its level of interest, which is nice.
And just a shout out to the cinematographer Arthur J. Ornitz. The movie looks gorgeous. Like it's bleak and takes place in some, pretty dilapidated areas of New York, but it still looks great. Like it's such a crisp, beautiful movie to look at in black and white.
Yeah, and that's what we found with Saddled Wind, which was in color with location shooting, big Western vistas, but it
Mhm.
just didn't. It wasn't that interesting a movie. Whereas this one, it has something to gnaw into a little more. Oh, one
Yeah.
other thought that I had watching this, and you did the podcast I think last year on Shawshank. I was definitely thinking of the
Yeah.
librarian guy that is out of prison after 15 years and has no clue what to do and ends up hanging himself, which I,
Hmm.
I was wondering if it was going to get that dark, which it doesn't quite get that dark. Oh, who knows what happens a week after. But I was
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
thinking of
but
that guy.
yeah, I think it's the same sort of phenomenon. He doesn't know how to function outside the world of boxing the same way, that character Red couldn't function in the world outside of the prison.
Yeah, and in prison being a more extreme degree of that. Again, my thing's
Yeah.
teaching English. If my world suddenly breaks down, that it's going to suck. I'm not going to like that, but it's not going to be quite as apocalyptic as the mountain and
Yeah.
red.
Yeah, I mean,
Speak.
I sell comic books. I mean, like I know that translates to retail in a lot of ways, but that's a very specific set of there's a very specific knowledge base that's not translatable to many other careers.
Yeah, it doesn't have the pot. I mean, you go to a comic book store now to buy comic books. The 7-Eleven doesn't just have that, circular spin rack of them anymore, right?
Yeah.
Um, Living in Japan, if I buy a comic book, it's going to be in Japanese. So any comic I've read
Hmm.
in the past 20 years has been like online. Like,
Yeah.
so I've completely gone digital for my comic reading. But that's how practicality. I mean, if I did live in the States, I don't know how it would work out. I'd probably buy a few omnibuses if nothing else.
Sure.
Um, Speaking of the podcast where you're talking to Shawshank Redemption, if people want to go check that out, can you give them a path there?
Yeah. I have a podcast with my good friend Scott Thorough called Popcorn Eschaton. It's on the Zebras in America feed. We talk about religion and politics through film, and sometimes we talk about politics or music or professional wrestling, wherever the movie takes us. Our next recording is going to be on the Hayao Miyazaki film Porco Rosso.
Oh,
So we like
English or
to.
Japanese for that one?
Um, I'm I'm kind of agnostic actually on the Miyazaki films because usually the English dubs are so good. But I think he's so meticulous in every way he designs his films that I think the score and the vocal performances in Japanese are meant to interplay with each other. So I prefer the Japanese version, but I'm not gonna
No, well, I live in Japan, so
I'm
like
not gonna disparage anybody if they prefer the English dubs of
no,
those movies.
Totoro or Spirited Away. I'm like, I will not watch those movies in English. They make sense in Japanese.
Okay.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say
yes.
Porco Rosso in particular has a really good Michael Keaton performance if you do it
Yes.
in English.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was actually going to most times Miyazaki I'm like watch in Japanese, but Porco Rosso I'm like
Yeah.
that one's kind of worth watching in English.
Yeah.
The other one I was
What was the thing I just saw? Oh, sorry, as I'm pulling up my the thing on my
Yeah.
phone.
My other
Uh,
Miyazaki that I think you should watch in English is Howl's Moving Castle because you get
yes,
Billy Crystal basically doing Mike Wazowski in it. And there's nothing
and
particularly Japanese about the movie, so there's no reason to watch it in
yeah,
Japanese.
and Lauren Bacall because he went to the English language premiere of that movie because he had a crush on Lauren Bacall.
Ah, okay. So anyway, the Howl's Moving Castle, by all means watch that one in English as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were looking up something. Did you find it?
No, just I wanted I was looking up the Lauren Bacall thing.
Oh, okay, great. Anyway, over on my end, where I've talked about some Miyazaki movies over at podcastius.org. We've done some films and filth. John, you've been there on
Yeah,
some
good
films, and
times.
yeah, have you been there for some filthy yet? I can't quite remember, but
Yeah, Captain America.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the nice kind of filth, isn't it? So there's that. Caught Disney. We've gone over several Miyazaki's, and we occasionally hit on some anime too. And yeah, check those out there. It's also Podcastio on Patreon. Okay, I guess we're gonna just have to KO ourselves. That's better than I guess the what Anthony Quinn has to do at the end of this movie.
Yeah, have to give a cringeworthy like Native American war cry in the middle of the ring as people boo him.
Yeah, I can't end this
Ugh.
podcast this way, so I won't.
No.
I'll end it there. I will. Okay.
Okay.
Let me hit a record, but yeah.